So we're going to do things a little bit differently here on YouTube today. We are preparing to take off for a trip for our anniversary. So today, instead of doing a large video, I'm going to do what you need to get into blacksmithing, specific types of equipment. We're going to talk about anvils, hammers, tongs, forges, all that kind of stuff coming up. So for the first one, I'm going to talk about one of the most iconic pieces of equipment for a blacksmith in one take. That being the hammer. All right, so there's a number of types of hammers in the world, and if you look at it, it could be confusing and stressful, and you think, well, what am I supposed to use for a hammer to blacksmith? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. The thing is that even here in Haines, Alaska, there is what is called the Hammer Museum, and it can be definitely a little overwhelming. However, it's really not that difficult as long as you know what you're looking for. So some of the big things that you want to look for in your hammer to start blacksmithing or bladesmithing is the weight. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, I'll just use my my carpentry hammer, or I have a little ball peen hammer, or machining hammer. Here's a reason why that's not going to work. A small jeweler's hammer, tiny little guy, couple ounces, it's not going to be enough to move steel effectively with a forge and an anvil. A small 8-ounce ball peen hammer, don't mind them being dirty, is not going to be enough to effectively blacksmith and really move your material on the anvil. Does that mean that these are useless? Well, no. These all have their own place for certain jobs regarding blacksmithing. However, what you really want is a heavier hammer. This is a 3-pound hammer. I made it myself. It's not super pretty, but I kind of like the rough aesthetic. A couple of things that you'll notice about this is that, one, it has the weight that you need in order to deliver the force that you need to move the material on the anvil under the hammer. 3 pounds is a really good weight for a blacksmithing hammer. Could be 4 pounds, could be 5 pounds, but you're getting pretty heavy. You're not really going to see people using an 8 to 12 pounder, at least not alone one-handed. And if they are, they're not doing it effectively, and they're not doing it all day. 1 pound is a bit light. 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds, you're getting there. I would recommend 2.5 to 3 pounds is a really good all general purpose hammer to start bladesmithing or blacksmithing. Second, one of the things that I really appreciate is the strike face. Now this one I haven't quite finished yet. I still need to smooth off and polish off the striking surface, but you'll notice that it is rounded. This is commonly called a rounding hammer, and I decided to make a straight peen on the other side to help. It's not an axe, it's not sharp, it's rounded off, to help me deliberately shape in certain ways. Now this is just one of many hammers that you'll have while you're blacksmithing, but this is my all-around go-to, does a little bit of everything hammer. It's 3 pounds, it has that rounded surface, because what happens is that if you were to take this hammer with a very straight edge, you'll cause little divots, little crescent moons in your material, because your material will never land perfectly, or your hammer will never land perfectly on your material. It will always cause little divots. And so when you have a rounding hammer like that, it helps to spread that material out without causing divots that you then have to work out later of your material. The other thing is it has a larger strike surface than a lot of these carpentry hammers or other little hammers that you'll find at the hardware store, basic ones. So that helps to spread that material out more evenly as well. Not that you can't use it, basic hammer from the hardware store, but this is, in my opinion, a better option. So get yourself a rounding hammer, or you can buy a hammer and round it off yourself with file sandpaper or a belt sander to help you work that material more evenly without having to make a bunch of divots that you then have to work out yourself. Last thing, okay, how to use the hammer. It's a little bonus tip. This isn't really about what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to throw it in there. Now, a lot of times you're going to see the guys working with, right? Or you'll see them way up here or way up here. you want to be right about here when you're working, and don't use a baseball grip. This is like, I'm going to muscle through it. Instead, what you're doing when you're blacksmithing is you're not pushing the hammer. You'll see a lot of guys pushing the hammer. Instead, you're going to be using your shoulder and elbow to drive that hammer down. Okay? So what you're actually activating is your back muscles a lot. Otherwise, you're going to start getting tennis elbow, and that's not good. So if you want to forge long into your life, you're going to bring that hammer up to about your head, and I'll show you in the forge later, and then you're going to bring it down with your whole body. Then what's going to happen with your hand is it's not going to be this baseball grip. It's going to be a little looser, okay? Not this, you're trying to muscle through it, but more like this, a little looser. And these fingers, a lot of times, will be loose. Not so that it flies out of your hand, but you're going to be using a pendulum effect. You don't literally have to lift your fingers in order to do it, but you're getting the movement from your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder. And what happens is that when you deliver that blow, you get a lot more power for a lot less effort, and stay hydrated, and